Actually had some water damage too from a flood.
Start now.
It wasn't about what I wanted, it was about what he wanted.
Just go there, the right people are there.
I'm not afraid to fail.
Am I willing to write in that check? Absolutely. All day long. I knew it was a deal, but I needed it at 70. And I asked him what he was going to do with the money. And that's when it clicked for me, because he didn't have an answer for that. He didn't really need the money for anything. I bought the house for $90,000, but the sellers financed me $90,000 in that house. Now, instead of putting it against that house that I was purchasing, as would be normal, I had the idea to put it against another property that I owned. So in essence, I refinanced another property that I owned that was going to be a long-term rental for me. 30-year terms, 4% interest rate. So I shifted it over there. So basically, they refinanced me. They basically loaned me $90,000 for 30 years at 4% interest.
This is a property that I purchased a few weeks ago. Actually, I haven't been back here since, but my team's been here, obviously, because we've started construction already. And let me tell you a little bit about this property. This was a seller who's owned this property for 40 years. He lived in it for the first 30 years. Then he moved out and moved on to, you know, a better home that he wanted to live in. And he kept this as a rental property, which is pretty common. So he contacted me. He thought a little bit like, you know, he thought it was going to be a scam. He's like, who is this guy that's buying a property? I was coming out through this kitchen. He said, who is this guy? You know, is he really going to pay cash for my property? Is he really going to buy this thing? So we met here at the house. It didn't look like this at the time. You know, obviously we've reconfigured some things since then. But he said, you know, he was a little skeptical at first. And, you know, I was able to tell him exactly who we are and what we do. And he recognized then that I was a real person and I was a real buyer. And, you know, it wasn't a scam. I always ask him, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and make anything happen, what would happen? You know, in the best case scenario, what would you like to see happen here? How long would you like to wait to sell this house? What would you like to fix up? What would you like to do with it? You know, what's the best scenario here? What would that look like to you? And listen, they'll tell you how to sell them. And you might not be able to give them all of their magic, you know, their magic wand list items, but you might be able to give them more than you think. We walled that off. That's the basement, right? Come in here, you got your pantry right here, and we decided to open this up so when you come in, it's going to be open kitchen, right? Really big open kitchen. This was like one of those wall, like brick, not brick, stone, like fireplace covers, and this is the fireplace right here, so we tore all this out. And you can see here, this was a really small galley kitchen. No good. So tore all that stuff out, opened this whole thing up. And as you walk through here, you're gonna have, you know, a bathroom and 2 bedrooms over there. And then we've got a master bedroom and master bathroom over there and another. So 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms upstairs. So it's awesome. We opened this whole thing up and changed the configuration. It's gonna look great. Whatever he's interested in, I'll talk about it because I'm interested in people. So he could tell I was being genuine and interested with him. So over the course of our conversations, which we had 2 or 3 at his house, he started to feel comfortable with me, that I wasn't just some snake oil salesman, that I really cared about him. And even one of the times I was there, we were waiting for his wife. We were going to talk more about the house situation. And his wife wasn't home yet. There was a miscommunication at the time we were going to be meeting. And I could tell he had his overalls on. He'd been out in the field. He owns like a couple of acres out there. And I said, well, what are you doing? You know, he's obviously in some coveralls and stuff. What are you doing out there? I said, oh, I'm looking for a sprinkler line. It was fall. He needed to drain his sprinkler so the pipes didn't freeze. And I said, what are you doing out there? He said, I've been looking for this silly sprinkler head, you know, release valve where I can drain the lines. I said, okay. I said, did you find it? No, I didn't find it. He said, I've been out there for 2 hours trying to find it. I said, I can't find it. So what do I do? What does any normal, caring human being do? Because I care. We're sitting there waiting in his kitchen. I could have been like, oh, that's cool. And stared at him and heard crickets chirping in the background. But I said, we got time. These arms aren't painted on. Let's go. So I walked. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, let's go out there. So maybe we were just talking anyway, and I'm not scared of work. So we went out there, went out into his field, his pasture, which is, it's really nice out there. And I said, where do you think it was? And we both got on our hands and knees and started digging around in the dirt, right? And I found it. It took me about 3 minutes. And man, what do you think he felt after he was out there for 2 hours and he couldn't find it? And I went out there, got on my hands and knees. I cared enough about him and what his problem was that I found that. And he marked it. He drained the line. He was almost, I mean, he was so grateful for that. And then we stood out. We sat down for another 20 minutes just out in the grass in the pasture, just talking about whatever. It reminded me of my grandparents' place in Georgia. It was just kind of cool. And then, you know, his wife came home 20 minutes later, and we both picked ourselves up out of the grass and walked inside and resumed our negotiation. How do you think that conversation or negotiation went after that?
He knew I cared about him, right? I wasn't, the things I was telling him, I was genuine with it. And I was genuine. I wasn't lying to him. But he felt that and he knew it because I was being truthful with him. He actually had some water damage too from a flood. And, you know, a lot of times the sellers too, this particular seller, he'd lived here for 30 years and he moved out and it was a rental property for him. He really wants to see it, you know, have new life, but he's kind of excited to see what we're going to do with it. He's seen some of our other projects. I show people pictures of those sometimes. He wants to see, wow, you know, what are you going to do to mine? So actually, after we're done, I'm going to walk him through this property and show him, you know, what we were able to do. And most people, I mean, it's fun to show people through it afterwards. A house they lived in for a few years, or maybe grandma lived in, and it's just, you know, it gives it new life and it just makes it you know, a new home. We opened this up. This was a bathroom. We reconfigured this master bathroom to give it more space. You're basically just rethinking different spaces, right? So it's exciting to walk people through afterwards as well. When I initially bought that house, I was thinking I could probably list it for $140,000. I was going to spend 30 or less on it. Jason Reed did a good job, opened the stuff up, spent about $35,000, which was like, ugh. But after seeing the pictures of it, seeing what it looked like, and pulling comps, I said, I think we can list this for $155. So I listed it for $155, and we got an offer. They offered, I think, $142. And another part, I empowered Jason Murphy, my agent. I totally empowered him to make those negotiation decisions because I didn't want to be emotionally attached to that negotiation because it doesn't matter what I'm into it. It only matters what the market will pay for that. So he negotiated with them. He got him up to 150, which I might have even negotiated myself a little less, but because I was only expecting 140 at the beginning. He got him to 150, paying a little bit of closing costs. So it looks like if that one goes through, fingers crossed, not the best situation, but I'll probably make about 15, which I bought that house to get the seller financing against another house. So making $15,000 on that flip is a huge bonus for me. I'd have been happy if I made 5. Because I really was just flipping that to get rid of that house so I could keep the financing somewhere else. So making 10 to 15 grand, I'm a happy camper on that one. As an investor, the longer you've been in the game, the more situations you've seen, the more techniques you know, for lack of a better word. They're tools in your toolbox. I know there's lots of different ways that I can work a deal. And it's not about what I want. I go into working it how they want it. So I'm not going to put a square peg in a round hole. I think a lot of times people are guilty of overlaying their beliefs on top of somebody else. So like you think that everyone thinks like you. Naturally, human beings think that. But you can't lay your beliefs on somebody else. You can't say, well, no, who would take 4% interest? Well, you don't know this guy's thing. You don't know that he's not making anything. You don't know that he's just retired and he'd rather take the cash flow and he'd rather have that money in, you know, in the bank, and or better than the bank, with tied to real estate, their first position on secure real estate, you know, property, you know, with a low loan to value. It's a great deal for him that way. And he didn't need the money now. He wanted the interest that came from the money, which most older people do. They want those annuities. Well, annuities don't pay much either. Annuity is just an insurance product that, you know, he could put that $90,000 in an annuity and make 2% interest, right? But he wouldn't even be able to take the $90,000 because he just sold it, paid $20,000 in taxes, had $70,000 after taxes to put in an annuity at 2% interest. Or he can take the full $90,000 value and make 4% on $90,000. So would you rather make 2% on $70,000 or 4% on $90,000? I realized at that point, that's when I started to spin on him, you know, the benefits to him, truly making a return on his money more than he was going to make before, you know, doing an installment sale, which the IRS allows you to prolong the gain that you made. So in essence, he's making interest on the IRS's money as he's prolonging paying them. So he's created an income stream for himself, things like that. And so all those benefits that I gave him, which were benefits to me as well, but I spoke about how it benefited him. And frankly, deals like that are better than the flip deals. The finance deals are better than the flip deals. And it was a huge benefit for him. I think he would still say today that it was a huge benefit for him, which is counterintuitive. A lot of people, it's like, what? Why would that be? Well, if you were in his shoes, you would recognize that he got what he needed because he's not like you. He's him, right? And it was a better situation for him and it was a better situation for me. So it really was a true win-win.